So good morning, colleagues. Good afternoon. My name is Obed Ogega. I'm the Programs Manager at the African Academy of Sciences. And we are grateful that you found some time to join us this morning. We thought of convening this meeting to share some perspectives in terms of our work on the research support that is provided to colleagues from social sciences, humanities, and arts. And the chat function, I think, has been enabled, so kindly feel free to text in and tell us where you're joining us from, perhaps your name and where you're joining us from. So the objective of this meeting really is to disseminate some of the findings from the work that we've done in the last couple of months on trying to understand the research support landscape provided to colleagues or researchers in the social sciences, humanities, and arts, abbreviated in this discussion as SSHA. And it's been a series of events, started with a consultancy in 2021, where we engaged the African Humanities Association to conduct some landscaping work and try to, document the current status of SSHA support. And that was followed by a series of validation workshops and focus group discussions, and culminating in a journal article publication. Some of the findings that are published in there will be shared today. So in the meeting, we'll hear from the lead author of the paper together with some of the co-authors, and also discussants that have been requested to join this meeting to share their perspectives from their fields. And at this moment, I'd like to welcome the Executive Director of the AAS, Dr. Peggy Otiboateng, to give our opening remarks and essentially open the meeting. Dr. Peggy, please.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. All right, okay. Thank you all so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from where you're joining from all over the world. I can see somebody's hand up. Gordon, you wanted to ask a question? Hello? Or just by accident? All right, okay. Thank you very much, colleagues, and we're pleased that you are able to join us. This is, we presented the platform for engagement, particularly on the, the topic of research capacity strengthening in Africa. And we're looking at the perspectives from social sciences, humanities, and the arts. This really resonates with the vision and mission of the Academy. The Academy was established in 1986, and since that time, we have led or provided the leadership in Africa on science through our vision of transforming lives through science, technology, and innovation. We also have a mission of leveraging science, technology, innovation for sustainable development. And again, that resonates with the UN Agenda 2030. We also value our integrity. We're guided by, enhancing diversity, excellence, and collaboration and fairness, and have three tripartite mandate. We recognize excellence, and exactly this is what we're doing in the area of social sciences. We also serve as a think tank in science, technology, and innovation, particularly in decision-making, and also providing the evidence for policymakers to make sure that they have the right decision, and also implement a number of science, technology, and innovation programs. And one of this is what we're having today. And we're very pleased that you've been able to join us. And also to move forward, our strategic objectives. Three, we want to build partnership and enhance the AAS brand to transform science, in fact, both sciences in Africa. We also want to support science, technology, innovation, research, and knowledge sharing in this digital age. And this is exactly what we're doing, and we really value your presence. I can see that we have over 95 participants connected, and that's quite a big number. So how do we create an enable environment for learning, sustainable development? We have, 5 main focus: environment and climate change, health and well-being, natural sciences, policy and governance, and social sciences, humanities, and art. I would say we have done a lot in the sciences, the natural sciences, but it's always very important to link science to society and also to policy. So we value this workshop, and we value this platform which you're going to create, and I hope this won't be the end of it. We also pursue critical cutting, cross-cutting areas: higher education, youth and gender, digital transformation, and want to ensure that the sustainability of science on a global level. In particular, with this workshop today, we often overlook, social sciences. This is overshadowed by STEM field, but we cannot have science and engineering without addressing the issues of social sciences, because you need to implement science in society, but most of the time we overlook that aspect. So we hope, with this platform, we hope with all of you connected, now 99 of you connected, this will only be the beginning to enhance and forge ahead in how we can incorporate social and human sciences aspects in all aspects of natural sciences. We also would want to pursue mentorship in this area and enhance research in that area, gender parity and equity issues in the social sciences. So how is AAS addressing these? And this platform provides us an opportunity to do that. But just to give you 2 of them, is that we really must, address this gap of mobilizing research support for the social sciences fields in Africa. We've done quite a bit, but not much, and we need to do a bit more. And I'm happy we have our colleagues from UNESCO for the social and human sciences who are connected. We want to partner with them and other, development partners and new individuals and researchers to be able to leapfrog in this area. We also want to develop strategic awareness creation to incorporate and support this work in Africa, and also want to expand the network of fellows in this field. So we in the Academy deem this a very important opportunity, and we hope that through this workshop or this webinar, we'll be able to continue the discussion at strategic level as well as the implementation level. So we're happy that we have all the other organizations who are here working at different levels, and we only look forward to ensuring that we implement science in collaboration, in cooperation, anchoring on social and human sciences and the arts. So it's only by doing that that will contribute to the African we want as a vision in the Africa Union Agenda 2063. So with these few words, I wish you all the best, all the success, and we look forward to the outcomes of this webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Giga.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peggy, for the opening remarks. I'll go straight to the presentation. I hope just trying to set up my slides. I hope you can see my slides. Roland, please shout if you don't. But once again, thank you very much for joining us. So I would like to give a brief presentation of the work that has gone into the entire process. It's been a concerted effort from different teams spanning 2-3 years now. And my presentation would begin, by giving a highlight so that we know where we're coming from and what led to this process in the first place. I'm glad that the ED has set the scene, so to speak, and so my work will be easy going forward. And after, giving an overview of the work that we do at the AS, and then I'll present some highlights from the publication that we've done, and we'll open that to panel discussions. We have colleagues that are joining in the panel, and after that, we'll open the floor for question and answers. As we get to that level, if you have a burning question, feel free to type it on the chat function, and our colleagues will be able to pick it from there. So the African Academy of Sciences, like the ED said, we are Pan-African, headquartered in Nairobi, but with 5 regional offices. This is the current location of our regional offices. That may change in the next few weeks, and considering that we are currently going through the elections period for the governing council positions. But essentially, we have 5 regional offices represented by 5 vice presidents. The current president is Professor Felix Dakora, who is from Ghana. And like I mentioned, the headquarters is in Nairobi. So we have 3 mandates. First is really the recognition of excellence. So once you've done some work in your field, you get to a level where you become a distinguished scholar. And if you meet a particular threshold, then you can apply to become a fellow of the academy. We also provide think tank advisory and think tank functions. This is through our participation in different fora and discourses. And the third one is on implementing key science, technology, and innovation programs. And I should mention here that science in our context means all fields of scholarship, so that at the end of the day, we are hoping to transform lives through science on the continent, as the ED mentioned. So in terms of the fellowships or the recognition of excellence, I've talked about the fellowships of the academy, and there are many ways of becoming a fellow. You can either be a fellow or an associate or a honorary fellow. And I should mention that we have a call for nominations to be fellows of the academy that is currently open, and I think it runs until 7th of July. So if you are in the workshop and you want to apply to be a fellow of the academy, it's important for you to know that the window for applications or nominations is still open. And if you are not quite at the fellow level, you can apply to be an affiliate of the academy. And if you visit the links that are provided there, you'll be able to get more information in terms of how you can become an affiliate of the academy. So in terms of our programming work, we have 4 thematic areas in which our work is done. The first one is building on research and development, leadership and environments on the continent, so that essentially we're trying to create an enabling environment for our researchers and their research to thrive. And the second goal is really supporting and developing an innovation and an entrepreneurial culture, essentially to enable our researchers transition their research from our institutions of higher learning to the communities or the policy space where this evidence or this work is required. The third goal is on identifying and supporting rising research leaders, and we do this in contribution to that critical mass that we believe would deliver the Africa we want. And our fourth goal, and most important, is really trying to fill the critical gaps in the research landscape. And this is where the main theme of today's webinar comes in. We are trying to see which areas do we want to address on the continent, so that even as we support various research initiatives, we ensure that we have an equitable, we have equity, research equity in terms of capacities around the continent. And this is that pillar that helps us address that. An example of works that have been done over the years by the Academy, including some of them that are currently ongoing. Because of time, I will not go into details. But I should mention that we don't do this alone. We thrive with, by working with others. We know it's a big space and everyone has an important part to play. So we leverage on partners and resources to try and address our objectives in the research and innovation agenda on the continent. So just to mention a few of our flagship projects that are currently ongoing, that are beneficiaries of the social sciences work that we've been doing in the recent past. One of them is the African Research Initiative for Scientific Excellence, or ARISE, and I'm glad that we have a few of the ARISE fellows connected today. ARISE is funded by the European Union, and we implement this in partnership with the African Union, through the African Union Commission, and of course with the support from the EU through the European Union Commission. And what's unique about this project is that the fellowships cut across all fields of scholarship. We have 45 main, the principal investigators, as we call them, but these colleagues are supported to also, support postgraduate students, PhDs, and master's students, and currently the numbers are pointing towards 500 people that are being supported in 38 countries across Africa. So we think this is really a program that has a potential for impact, a great impact as we move along. And some of the colleagues in ARISE work in fields related to social sciences, humanities, and arts. The other program is the Africa Postdoctoral Training Initiative, again, because of the cross-cutting issues of the research as we know it today. Our work insists that before we fund you, your project must be transdisciplinary, taking into account, like I said, the cross-cutting issues, also trying to all work towards achieving that greater impact that is obtained by working in teams. So we think in that way, we are already contributing to, working together with all, researchers from all fields of scholarship, so that, again, leveraging on synergies and strengths from different fields, we increase our chances of achieving the objectives that we seek to implement. And in our work, I like to talk about the rising research leaders again, because working with the African Union in concert with the aspirations of Agenda 2063, there is a strong belief that if we are going to get there as a continent, we must have that critical mass of research leaders that will help us deliver the Africa we want. And for that reason, we have put quite a lot of emphasis in identifying and supporting these rising research leaders that we think are going to carry the future of Africa in terms of our research and the innovation agenda. And some of the things or the aspects of the work that we do in there is ensuring that even when we are focusing on Africa, shifting the center of gravity of African research to the continent, our work is still seen to be world-class. There's nothing like African science. We may be Africans, but the work we do is not just locally relevant, it's also globally competitive. We work on other aspects, including individual professional development, networking, and collaborations. Again, making sure that you leverage on synergies of others, in your field to be able to achieve a greater impact. We want to build on leadership development. Again, essentially, we know that maybe not everyone gets to benefit from the grants that we give as an academy, but you can work and support others in your networks. And in so doing, we are contributing to that critical mass of scientists that will deliver the Africa we want. Yeah, so most of our work is themed around 4 areas. So we touch on global health, green transition, innovation and technology, but also capacities for science and higher education. And as I mentioned earlier, science in our definition refers to all fields of scholarship. And over the years, we partnered with others, and we want to be aligned with the regional and global discourses or objectives, so issues around the SDGs, but also Agenda 2063, as mentioned earlier. And we are glad and that we've been able to forge these partnerships that are already proving very fruitful in the work that we do. And so, looking at the amount of work that we've done over the years, we realized that, by 2020, the academy seemed to be supporting researchers more in the biomedical sciences or the physical sciences side of things than we hoped to do for our researchers in the social sciences, humanities, and arts. And with this in mind and aware of the importance played by our colleagues from the social sciences, humanities, and arts, we decided to do a scoping exercise to, give us an understanding of where we are as a continent in terms of the support that is provided to colleagues from these fields. And a consultant was hired to work with others, and we are happy that we were able to partner with the association, the African Humanities Association, and colleagues in that space to help us with the landscaping, the scoping exercise to get us some data. And after that, we convened a few meetings, dissemination meetings, sharing some of the preliminary findings, having discussions around what was coming out of the consultants' work, so that at the end of the process, a team, or we want to call this a focus group discussion, a focus group was selected, comprised of practitioners or experts from the field to, sit, deliberate on the issues that had been identified and come up with the key recommendations that we would use to inform our programming work going forward. And in the process, a journal article was published that then forms the basis of our discussion today. So I want to appreciate this team whose photo appears on our screen for quite some work that they put into our discussions that have culminated in the meeting today. So I've alluded to the methodology that was followed. So we commissioned the Association of the African Humanities Association in 2021 to do a scoping exercise. A report was produced, and some of the objectives for that work was to characterize the current state of SSHA support in Africa. We also wanted to identify the research leadership capacity on the continent in terms of SSHA, bringing out the needs and critical gaps on the continent, identifying key players, but also teasing out opportunities and challenges that then would inform prioritization of interventions going forward. So after this was done and reports were produced, as I've mentioned, discussions were held through focus groups to bring out, to look at what had been presented and come out with a report that we think is going to be a roadmap on how we proceed going forward. So some of the results or some of the outcomes of this, what we learned through this process was, looking at the participants that were surveyed in the survey that was done earlier as part of the consultants' work. We learned that of the 600 plus participants, only 42% had one form of research funding. And in terms of mentorship, we only about 11% were satisfied with the type of mentorship that was provided in their research institutions. I think mentorship was one of the key areas that we wanted to look at, aware of the importance that it provides or brings to our research support systems in our institutions of learning. And these findings agreed with what is available in literature in terms of how much investment has been provided in that space to enable support functions like mentorship and supervision and things like protected time for research, really, so that our colleagues, our researchers have enough time to conduct research and begin to, significantly contribute to the knowledge space in terms of social sciences and humanities. So from this, it was obvious that there's need for more investment to be able to advocate for and enhance research support for our researchers in the SSHA fields. And on bibliometrics, there was a scope an analysis done on publications related to the SSHA fields in Scopus for the period 2011 to 2020, from which only about 5% of the output was from Africa. 5% of the publications that were submitted were published in Scopus during that period of 2011 to 2020 could be attributed to Africa. And there were substantial regional differences in terms of ownership, where Southern Africa took the lion's share with about 50% of all the publications surveyed. West Africa had about 17%, North Africa and East Africa accounted for about 15%, while colleagues from Francophone and Lusophone Africa, if I may use those terms, contributed to about 5% of the research output. Of course, these are indicative figures, but they point to the situation on the ground. And an interesting finding was that, in terms of the citations, African journals had a significantly lower citation score compared to other journals globally that had an average of about 3.5. So this again points to issues around either accessibility or attractiveness of our African journals. And there's need for more investment in that space to make our journals more attractive and competitive in the context of the global research. And there was also a question around the capacity of the editorial teams, but also an investment that was being made to ensure visibility of our journals and the works that have been published, so that we need to invest more and ensure that accessibility is there, but also that the work that is published in our journals is also competitive in the context of the global market. Yeah. So in terms of lessons learned, and I know running out of my time allocation, the main challenge, which is come out even in the literature, is that there is inadequate funding, inadequate availability and access to research funding. This is also common even in other fields of scholarship, as we know in Africa, but the challenge seems to be even more pronounced when it comes to research in the social sciences, humanities, and arts related fields on the continent. And so there is need for us to invest in that space and make sure that there's more availability of funds to be able to facilitate some of the research agenda that we have for colleagues in the social sciences, humanities, and arts, but also facilitate other aspects of capacity strengthening in general, including mentorship, publications, whether that is in terms of the article processing charges, but also capacity building around the publications, the science of publication in general. Most importantly, looking at the workload for colleagues in these fields, there is need to enhance that capacity so that researchers in that field have more time, more protected time to conduct research. So, in terms of priorities, money came tops. Again, considering that not enough is invested in that space. So there's need for mentorship in, like I said, in terms of producing excellent research, but also issues around science communication or research communication and dissemination, issues around capacity building to ensure that, we have more scholars coming up, taking up that research leadership role and advancing the science and the research and innovation agenda. Need for mobility for not just skills transfer, but also making sure that there's awareness creation in terms of the research that is produced, and to ensure that this informs discussions in the policy space, policy formulation and implementation. So as a recommendation, then the scholars appreciated the work that is being done by regional and global organizations trying to advance the work in the social sciences, humanities, and arts, but there was need for more investment and even a call for a program or a platform that really focuses its energy on mobilizing and coordinating support for both researchers but also institutions to be able to push the research and innovation agenda in the social sciences, humanities, and arts across Africa. We think that in so doing, we'll then begin to amplify the role of researchers from the SSHA fields and take advantage of the synergy that is brought about by research in SSHA fields to inform the research output in general across the continent. So because of time, I would like to stop there and thank people that have made this work possible, beginning by our partners, Carnegie Corporation of New York, for the funding that went into this work, researchers at the African Humanities Association for initial work that led into the reports that have culminated in this work being presented here today. But also, the focus group that has been crunching the numbers and looking through the reports to determine, in terms of interventions, what we are supposed to be doing going forward. Colleagues at the AIS that have put quite a lot of work in making this happen. And our participants in terms of responses, those that have given us feedback directly and indirectly. We appreciate all that have been involved in this work and making this a success. So thanks, colleagues, for listening. I'll hand over to Muyiwa to invite the next speaker. Thank you. Adegun, are you there?
It appears that Professor Muyiwa is having a challenge connecting. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ogega, for your wonderful presentation, highlighting what the African Academy of Sciences tries to achieve, and also highlighting the findings from the Social Sciences, Humanities, and Arts study. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ngandu Ngata Hugyu, a unit head and program specialist, social and humanities and sciences at UNESCO's regional office in Nairobi, Kenya. He'll be taking us through revamping the social sciences and humanities perspectives from UNESCO. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to intervene in such a timely webinar. You rightly said I'm from the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, where I lead the unit, a very small one, in charge of the social and human sciences. And that spearhead the work the organization is doing in that particular angle. In East Africa, where we cover 13 countries in the region, we have a representation across Africa, also from the regional office for Western Africa, which is based in Dakar, to the one for Central Africa, based in Yaoundé, or Southern Africa, based in Harare. Just to mention a few. We also present in the Maghreb region in Africa, with the Rabat and Cairo offices serving those regions. So I wanted just to shed few lights on the work of the organization vis-a-vis supporting the whole work on the social and human science, and maybe some word of appreciation before even going forward vis-a-vis the Africa Academy of Science that has led this wonderful study that was presented by Dr. Robert, and also thank Dr. Peggy for the opportunity to really take this collaboration forward. It's essential for us to be working hand in hand with the academy and to see how to really advance the agenda of the social and human sciences and humanities at large, and how the mandate of UNESCO combined with that of other partners could really help revamping this important environment. You said it, Dr. Peggy, in terms of the role of the social science and humanity to really spearhead the agenda for sustainable development, the UN agenda for sustainable development. You will not be able to achieve sustainable development if you don't take into account the social science dimension. And I think that has been the major issue in the Millennium Development Goals, because the social dimension was not well infused. The same way as we speak about the implementation of the Africa Union Vision 2063, which could not be achieved without a thorough perspective from the social science as well. So this placed the importance of the topic we are discussing today and the need to critically look at how to revamp the social science and the humanities. Dr. Obert shared already a lot from the background of what has been done. What I want to do is mainly provide more about enabling environment, especially from the perspective of UNESCO, to accompany this important work. And maybe I will start with the standard setting function of the organization and mention in this regard the UNESCO recommendation on science and scientific researchers. It's a 2017 recommendation which I believe is important because it speaks about the responsibility of science toward the United Nations ideals of human dignity, progress, justice, peace, welfare of humankind, and respect for the environment. It's about science as a core for supporting member states' efforts to develop more humane, just, inclusive societies and serve to further the United Nations ideals, as I was highlighting at the beginning as well. So from the perspective of this important instrument, it's a recommendation which doesn't have a binding force, but against which our member states are obliged to report, because this recommendation put very much to the front the responsibility of science toward development aspect. And we need to see how we meaningfully interact with the societies through research, through academic institutions, and for the matters, the different institutions in charge of social and human sciences, how effectively they contribute to the development of the society? How do we engage university and generate knowledge that is meaningful, not just to understand the transformations our society are going through, but really to inform the policy-making processes that are taking place in our different countries? How effectively our government are informed by the academia, by the research from the social and human sciences, and how much does our university, with the knowledge that it produces. Dr. Robert mentioned about the very sad statistics, and if you take those statistics at the global level, they are even more preoccupying, because the contribution of Africa to the whole knowledge production globally is really a drop in the sea. How do we change the narrative? How do we change the perspective beyond funding? Yeah, it came prominently from the study that we need more funding, but beyond funding, the institutions that are in place, how effective are they in terms of creating an enabling environment for research in social science and humanities to thrive? When such research is done, how much are they publicized? How much platform are we creating for research to infuse in policy making and the like? So UNESCO, from this recommendation, is certainly assessing the member state in those different fronts, but beyond that, is also creating some enabling platform from the perspective of the mandate of the organization as laboratory of idea, where I could mention instances as the World Humanities Forum that happened in 2017, and where the organization at the global level really brought together relevant expertise from the social science and humanities to interrogate the way humanities are contributing to the development, to interrogate the different approaches. And beyond having it at the global level, in Africa, it was translated through the Africa Humanities Forum. The latest one was held in Bamako in Mali in 2021, where African scholars also had the opportunities to gather and to really question the way we use and operationalize the social science and the humanities for the at the service of our societies in Africa. How do we use social science to interrogate our development options, to make sure that we are not just adhering to epistemologies that are developed from somewhere and we just apply them randomly? What is it that we generate as knowledge that matters for our constituencies and the like? So this really speaks to some of these platforms that are there to generate the type of engagement with the key stakeholders and to inform more relevant programs. And in terms of programs that I would like to mention to this audience in accompanying the work on social science and humanities is, for instance, the UNESCO Management of Social Transformation program, where we really look into bridging the gap between academia and policymakers. And that is taken at another level when we operationalize the UNESCO most schools, which are very very comprehensive engagement and capacity building formats through which we collaborate with universities around particular thematic and bringing both scholars and policymakers to address them in a more effective way. Yeah, maybe also in terms of enabling environment, we are trying to promote to engage more the social science and humanities is through the what we call the UNESCO Chairs program, where different universities could willingly align their mandate, their contribution to the mandate of the organization through a kind of labeling process where they become a UNESCO chair and agree together with the organization on a set of priorities from capacity building to generating programs that will really they could be at undergraduate, postgraduate level, but really to inform particular work in the domain of the social science and humanities. Yeah, and maybe also I'm trying to be conscious of the time and to indicate that beyond the UNESCO Chairs program is also in the work of the social and human science we have within the organization is to lead conversation on new trends. If I refer, for instance, to the whole work of the social science and humanities from the ethical perspective to interrogate some development trends, some new technologies from the use of genomes to genetic manipulation, but most currently the whole trends vis-a-vis artificial intelligence. How do we ensure that this development is compatible with our societies? How the social scientists will inform the engineers in the way they are developing those algorithms to make them human-centered? How do we ensure that we have a good AI thriving for the for addressing social needs and not the opposite? So these are really important elements that we may want to see how to continue working around. Maybe two last points, mentioning or taking advantage of this platform to really echo the work of UNESCO for the development of the general issue of Africa. We have developed with experts from all boards in Africa and beyond a collection of volumes giving better account, a less colonized perspective of the Africa history, which has resulted into 8 volumes that are available and volume 9, 10, and 11 under finalization to take into account development beyond the independence of Africa state, but also the connection between Africa and its diaspora. I'm mentioning all of this because from the perspective of an history written by Africans themselves, we need to interrogate the way we relate to the society, the way we operationalize development, our Pan-African perspective to different thematic we are dealing with. And what better than the social science and humanities to really embrace such a corpus of knowledge and to see how to infuse it systematically in everything we are doing. So that is really important to me, and I think it was worth outlining in at this platform. And the last point is the opportunity we have with the World Philosophy Day. It's a day that is set aside by UNESCO, the third Thursday of November, to celebrate the critical knowledge and its contribution to different fronts of the society. So this is also another interesting platform all stakeholders in the social science and humanities are able to embrace to address different areas of their work. This year is the mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. As social scientists, what is our contribution to the achievement of the human rights? How do we interrogate the right to science and the academic freedom that we are expected to exercise in the operationalization of our different engagement? So how do we really embrace all of these elements to contribute to the advancement of social science and humanities. Yeah, and lastly, the collaboration again, we want to see moving forward with the Africa Academy of Science. We have recently signed up a letter of intent, and we look forward to this collaboration to really help revamping the social science and humanities, to put them at the center of the development, and not just as a second choice for those who may not have any other option in the academia. Because in many cases, you have the feeling that it's a discipline that is embraced, or these are core disciplines that are embraced where students may not have other options. But how do you change the narrative? And that should start from the way we relate to our academic institution, the enabling environment within our academic institution for young researchers to blend with the seniors, to allow the social science and humanities to get their genuine place in the development processes we are having. Publication, how effectively are we publishing? What is the value of those publications? What is the ethic behind our research and publication? And how do we connect those to genuine thematic in the society to support development options? So these are some of the little elements I just wanted to share with you. And again, appreciating the opportunity of being part of this very important conversation, and looking forward to interacting more with all of you through the African Academy of Science. Thank you for your attention, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngata Hugo, with those incredible remarks on the perspectives of the social sciences and humanities from UNESCO. Ladies and gentlemen, with us is Professor Adijun. Professor Adijun from the Federal University of Technology in Akure. And he'll be taking us through the next session that will involve various discussants. Over to you, Professor Adigun. Professor Adigun.
Okay, thank you, Roland, and okay, thanks. I hope you can all hear me. Very good morning to you, afternoon, evening, just depending on your location. Apologies for joining late. I was kicked out of Teams after joining earlier, and I'm happy to be back in the meeting. Thanks to Dr. Peggy for the introduction and the background, and also thanks to presenting the status quo in terms of SSHA in Africa research and support, highlighting and reflecting on the way forward. Thanks to Edu for taking us through the very good work you do at UNESCO. Good to see the frontiers you are creating, and the connections with the African Academy of Science shows there are lots of opportunities in moving the SSHA fields forward. Thanks for those words and the food for thought. In this session, I would invite three scholars who would reflect further on the report and the status of the SSHA in Africa. Professor Peter, to Maria, and Professor Charles with us, and they will be addressing different issues. First, I would want them to reflect on transdisciplinarity. Generally, in transdisciplinarity, scholars in the SSHA disciplines are meant to contribute. Well, what's the status quo? For example, SSHA's contribution in biomedical, in medical research, and in contributing to solutions, for example, in artificial intelligence in the fourth industrial revolution. I would want to hear your reflections on that. And then to key areas for investment in higher education in Africa. Why should development partners support higher education and research in Africa? What are key challenges that Africa for the next 5 to 10 years? and what are the key areas, some form of agenda setting, particularly reflecting on the status of the SSHA disciplines in Africa. Let's see what ideas we can chart going forward. And these questions are not just to our panelists. Would want participants to send in their comments in the chat box. Someone is taking note of your comments. I'm not sure we'll all have the time to speak, but it would be good to harvest all your comments, and then we can put this together in going forward. So I'll hand over the floor to Professor Peter to give his reflections based on the areas highlighted and beyond. Over to you, Professor Peter.
Thank you, Professor Degun, and also thanks to the presenters, Dr. Ogega and Ms. Ngata, for the good presentations that they have given us. I want to start off by saying that each one of us experiences problems depending on how we have been brought up to understand and perceive them. And even when we are looking for solutions, those solutions are derived of the bio and the physical sciences, trying to bring these critical innovations and technological innovations into addressing the human problems, which ultimately are supposed to address the SDGs along their various targets. Different people will take on these innovations, take them on to solve their problems depending on how they understand them. And this is why now, in developing of these innovations, we need the researchers to also integrate the elements of the social sciences, the humanities, and the other arts into the perception of the problem and how they are trying to look for the solution. I want to restrict myself to two areas: the area of trying to fight for food security, where farmers who are producing food are understood and are integrated into developing innovations of improving agricultural farm productivity. This is working out well. Secondly, when we refer back to in the area of disease or human disease, the experience of COVID-19 taught us that beyond the biomedical innovations, behavioral changes are instrumental in fighting disease. And hence, this is where we need transdisciplinarity to be practical in the researches that we are doing, not only at the level of like appending social scientists or humanity experts into the projects, but actually making them part of the project so that both or all the disciplines that are taking place into the research projects understand and talk the same language. Then secondly, I would think that the reason why development partners should continue to get interested in higher education is that, of course, problems are changing every day. New knowledge is needed. And in order to generate this new knowledge, definitely research must continue to take place. And how it is this knowledge is to be applied, it means we must have researches taking place, but also the documentation being able to be shared among different users. And at this moment in history, we need to make sure that all the knowledge we are sharing or we are generating can be shared, especially digitally or online, so that a lot of knowledge, especially which is now kept in individual universities, individual higher education institutions, can be accessible to most of the other scholars across the globe. And Of course, I also see that there are other critical issues that we need to understand. Together with this, especially strengthening the social scientists, the humanity and art scholars in this enterprise, it means we also must strengthen their professional bodies. Currently, you may notice that the physical scientists and the are the ones who have professional bodies that are registered, acknowledged by governments and other development partners. So even the social sciences, humanities, the professional bodies need to come out and be supported to be more visible, especially in directing and guiding the research and outputs from this research. And lastly, the opportunities I think are open to Africa's higher education is that the good thing, the population is interested in accessing higher education. And in Uganda, I can see this reflected in the extent to which individual parents are willing to finance the education of their children up to higher education in universities and other higher education institutions. This is an opportunity to take advantage of. And although we are having the government investing more in STEM-related subjects, but the fact of the matter is that the pre-tertiary institutions are dominantly humanities and arts, meaning that that's why you have more students joining education, higher education institutions and universities in the area of humanities, social sciences, and the arts. So that being the case, it means if we tap into this, we can make a critical mass that we'll be able to use to support the innovations that are being done by the physical scientists and biomedical scientists. And interestingly, in this enterprise of increasing higher education enrollment, at least in Uganda, we have seen that there has been more education enrollment for closing the gender gap that had hitherto existed, especially with the introduction of the extra 1.5 point for each female student joining university. We have seen more ladies joining the universities, and in the humanities, in the social sciences and the arts, we have already exceeded actually 50% of the population in these areas. But the challenge is how to maintain and retain them, such that although we are complaining that we don't have female scholars as head of departments, we cannot have them if we can't recruit them and retain them. So that is the challenge that I think the next agenda should address in order to make the social sciences, humanities, and the arts more instrumental in making the changes that we want for the next coming century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter. Very valid points you've raised there. I can see strengthening professional bodies, paying attention to pre-tertiary education from the high schools, catching them young, and some form of affirmative actions in order to address the gender imbalance, but not just some once-off policies, but something that sustains the pipeline, so that there is a encouragement of females and their growth in the system as scholars in the SSHA and contributing significantly. Thank you for those points. I'll hand over to Dr. Maria now to make her reflections in about 3 or 4 minutes before Professor Charles takes the floor.
Good.
Hello, Dr. Maria, we can't hear you. Hello? I'm not sure if she's there. Maybe Professor Charles.
Yes, I'm
can...
here. Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, you can go ahead now.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. Maria Mbatude from Chambogo University, Department of Biological Sciences. I'm glad to be part of this conversation. And I'd like to begin from the perspective of culture and indigenous knowledge. Of looking at social sciences, I think there is a need for the multidisciplinarity to come in, as well as the cross-cutting issues that are arising. Taking an example of the recent COVID case. So we come from different cultures, and then we have different indigenous knowledge. So when we include the social science aspect, it enables us to come up to bring up a solution to some of the emerging issues that we are facing, and then we are yet also to face, as well as including also climate change. The other bit that I wanted also to highlight is the need for information flow, what we would call the top-to-down approach, as well as the bottom-to-top approach, which Dr. Ogega called the bridging the gap. So there are certain nodes that we need to, I think, emphasize, where I also look at the policies, what we generate at the university or universities. This knowledge needs to be put on the tables of the policymakers, such that this comes out in the implementation plans, as well as within the plans of the governments of different countries within Africa. That is the second point I note, but also I also note an opportunities that to be captured. For example, when we are carrying out also research to blend the sciences, that the science, technology, and innovations with the science, social sciences bit, and such that this information is laid out to the implementers, the researchers, as well as those individuals that are doing the innovations and availing products on the markets. This is, I think, my contribution, but maybe going forward, I would like to propose a policy brief to African governments to increase on maybe the percentage of their budgets that is going to research, especially in the area of social sciences. Thank you. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Maria, for those points, highlighting the place of culture, interdisciplinarity, budget provisions, especially for the SSHA disciplines within the research for higher education and research. Are very interesting points. I'll hand over the floor to Professor Charles to give us his own reflections. Yeah, over to you, Professor Charles. Hello, Professor Charles. I hope you're there. Hello.
He needs to unmute and talk.
Okay, so please unmute yourself and speak. We'd like to hear from you. Yes, I can see you here. Please unmute.
Okay, yes. Now I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Go ahead. You have to
thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Muyaya Charles. I'm a professor at Mackay University in the Department of Food Science and Technology. I'm happy to be with you all members talking about this important aspect of social science. Basically, maybe I can first tell you a story. One time we had a research to do with the dairy. And what we did is to think for the people, that maybe these people, they need an animal which can produce meat, at the same time produce animal. And we call that animal a dual animal. After sitting down in our offices, we decided, let us go to the community and check what they say about our proposal. After reaching there, the community told us, for us, we are not interested in your dual animal. We are interested in goats. So that's how social science is very, very important, and the community engagement is very, very important before we do the research. So basically, for me, I believe that all the science we do, which you call physical science or hard science, is sort of problem the communities. But the challenge you have is that detachment of the physical scientist from the social scientist. You end up doing work which is not going to be implemented within the communities. So for me, usually it's disheartening to find that a lot of research has been done in Africa, but doesn't filtrate the community to solve the problems. Actually, I was thinking most of the time that if at all we go for funding proposals, one of the criteria which should be strengthened is that ability to know how the research is going to impact on the society in terms of solving the real problems. So we find that if for us the hard science on their side and the science on their side, we lose the dynamic interaction within the community. So we need to understand that our research we are doing as physical science is solve problems for the community. So there is that interaction which is required all the time. And also another aspect which I'm going to talk about is about how the universities have tried to promote the behavior of reporting science, disseminating science in areas where Africans cannot access, especially when it comes to the journals. As here at Makerere and other universities, we talk about high impact journals. But those high impact journals, they are for academicians, they're not for the community. And you find that most of the research, you publish them in journals which cannot be accessed by the people who need the findings to be used. So I think we should try to promote our African journals, and we call them high impact journals, so that we publish our work which we do in Africa, so that we can have an impact on African grounds. So this one requires some institutional change, where the universities should change their mindset and think that the journals where people have to be promoted against might be coming from Europe, but be coming from America. And actually that one, I don't like it so much. Sometimes I talk about something which is, it annoys some people, but I usually tell people that we need to decolonize our mind, that even the journal in Africa can help you to proceed and get your promotions. So we try to encourage people to make sure that they publish in African journals. Another aspect which also I'm talking about is when it comes to radio training, we, the professors, the lecturers, how do we train the hard scientists in such a way that they understand what they do has an impact on the community? So we need to, actually I call it socialize the curriculum, which are hard science curriculum, and make them have aspect of social science, which I think is very, very important. That the students who are coming out, they can try to solve problems the community. Sometimes I think that for me, I could love a research problem which comes from the community to my table, but not from my table to the community. But that one requires some kind of funding in order to go down there in the community and try to digest that this is a problem which people are suffering from, people which they want to solve, and then I translate that one into research. I think that could be the best way to conduct research, which is meaningful to the communities. And again, sometimes when I do my work, I believe that all of us, whether social scientists, hard science, physical science, we are trying to solve the problem of, for example, hunger, inequality, education. These are community issues. They are not just for science. That shows the importance of our research when it is integrated with social science, in order to make sure that our contribution towards those goals is really very, very much. And also another aspect which I find very important when it comes to the funding and also the government policy. I tell you, in Uganda, there's a policy which I don't like, but it is there. The policy by the government that, for example, when it comes to salary facilitation, they facilitate salaries only for people who are doing physical science, and they forget about the social science. This one actually demoralizes. For me, I believe this should be equality, because social science is a big impact when you are doing our hard science. So government policies should be there, but they should not favor only physical science, but also consider the social sciences and humanities, because they are very, very important in community development and for the national development. And another aspect which is also very important is about we, the researchers, with our work. How can we translate the complexity of the findings into simpler ways, how the community can understand them? Actually, this one requires somebody with social science who knows how the languages and so to help the hard science or the physical science translate that information, doing what? Dissemination. These are things which are really very, very important, but sometimes we don't really care about them. For example, I have a course which I teach in food safety. The course is called Food Safety Culture. This course is basically understanding people, why people do what they do. I usually tell my students that some people go to the factory, they write their please wash their hands, but somebody deliberately they move side without washing the hand. You ask yourself why. This is a problem of understanding the person and how you deal with the person, because the instruction you put there is not the person, but the person who does that is the one you have to touch. You touch the mind of the person. So this course, I like it because it touches the mind of the people, touches the mind of the students. So I think we need to integrate the hard science with social science at low cost, and actually they must be at per level, because I know for me social science is very, very important, because all the research we do is to solve people's problem, not science problem. I hand over to you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor Charles, for those very vital comments. I can see the central place of community engagement, and from your presentation, I believe community engagement naturally elicits attention to social sciences, humanities, and arts. So if more scientists would deliberately engage the communities they are trying to solve problems for, it's really naturally would bring them into context of the social sciences, humanities, and arts, as well as related fields. And it's good to note your comment on the need for deliberate policies. I think that the summary is there needs to be some form of affirmative actions for scholars in the SSHA fields in order to address the existing bias. We have some comments in the chat box, and this has been noted, but I think I'll summarize a few of them. And if we have some time, if there is just one person who has a burning comment who might want to speak, maybe just one in a minute or so before we have the closing remarks, and then we close the webinar. Couple of comments. Two comments I can see is highlighting the issue of SSA research, but not within the context of PhD. And I guess this is coming from people who are outside core academia, people working with civil society, NGOs, who do some form of research, but they're not registered for PhD, and this research counts. And I think that needs to be taken into account in the field. So it's not just discounted in terms of the research taking place in the field, in the SSHA disciplines, and they contribute to impacting society. Also, the issue of mentorship, someone highlighted the need to match career preparedness with mentorship, and I think that was also raised. That gap was raised in the presentation on the gaps on mentorship in the SSHA disciplines. So mentorship it's very vital. in this field, and that's important to note. The issue of funding also came up. That's from Dr. Egbetokun, who spoke about funding, that the STIs are already underfunded, and that's as a way of affecting the SSHA disciplines as well. And we need creative modes of funding. He also shared a publication, which I have read this publication before, and I will encourage everyone to look it up, on the state of the social science research in Nigeria. It's also part of studies done across some other countries in Africa as part of the Doing Research program. So you have the links in the chat box. You can look up the research reports and the publications associated with this work. They give some very useful directions. We also see the need to activate African agency. That's a comment from Francis, and I think it's very important. What are those philosophical underpinnings for our institutions, for our practices, for our lives as Africans? How can we bring those to the mainstream, which in a way embodies some of the issues that promote the SSHA disciplines? It's necessary to consider all that in moving the discipline forward. And the issue of impacting livelihoods and communities is also very important. I think not just research for the sake of research, the SSHA disciplines looking more to impact in its research and what it does, and in communicating the research, in translating the research into society. So those are a summary of some of the comments we have in the chat box. I can see one and maybe more than one. I hope we can take just one comment or two. If let's just keep it short. Okay, sorry. I'm just trying to see. Okay, Henry, can Henry speak? And then we have Francis. Just the two of you, you speak after each other. We'll just take the two. Please keep it to 1 minute, thereabout, and let's have your take. Yes, Henry, you have the floor. Please unmute and speak. Okay, while we're waiting to have Henry, Francis, can you go ahead to make your comments? Francis Stepman, I can see you raising your hand. Oh, maybe you cannot unmute. Okay.
Right, I can now unmute.
Oh, okay, please go ahead and give us your comments.
So
sure.
I refer to the chat box where I give you a link with more details of what I wanted to say. But basically, the European Commission is now selecting 6 consultancy bureaus from Europe for supporting scientific research in Africa in what they call the regional centers of excellence. And I have been in this process, and I regret that the African partners have not been more involved into conceptualizing this. So the context which have been made for drafting a proposal towards the European Commission for those regional centers of excellence was discussed with FARA, the Forum of Agricultural Research in Africa based in Accra, and also with the NEPAD AUDA in Johannesburg. So it is like a 150-page document which was submitted to the European Commission. And I would like to know from you, from the African Academy of Sciences, whether you were contacted by any of the 6 consultancy bureaus, which I mentioned in the beginning of the chat, whether you were contacted to indeed participate in the discussion. Because if African partners are not be the coming European Commission support to regional African centers of excellence, we are really missing the point. And we are talking here about an initial phase of 3 million euros, which is to prepare another more ambitious program, which would be about 80 million euros for the coming decade, subdivided in West, East, and Southern Africa to support regional centers of excellence in Africa related to the green transition. And when we are talking about the green transition, we are talking, of course, about sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, but I think the social sciences have a very big voice to play into setting up this new green energy for the African continent. So this was my comment. Also, my question was the African Academy of Sciences, whether you have been involved so far in such discussions. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Francis. I know Dr. Obed might have a response to that after the next speaker. Henry, are you able to unmute now? Henry Ugu, you raised your hand. I want to be sure you're still there. Okay. I'm not sure Henry is there. Dr. Obed, can you give a response to this? And I think that will lead us into your closing remarks for the webinar. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, colleagues, for these very interesting discussions, and thanks, Francois, for highlighting the consultation process that has gone into the scientific and technological support for the regional centers of excellence. My brief response to you is that we may not have been contacted directly, but we're working in partnership with the African Union through what we call the AU-EU High-Level Policy Dialogue on STI, and we've been involved. It's the framework in which, for example, programs like ARISE are funded. So in that context, we get to have engage in discussions at that high level. But specific engagements with the 6 organizations that you mentioned, as far as I know, I haven't, but I have other colleagues at the organization. I may have to check and see if anyone has been contacted. But discussions around the centers of excellence, even in terms of our collaboration with ARUA, or the African Research Universities Alliance, and the Guild from EU, we are already engaging in some of these discussions around the centers of excellence, and we've been part of those discussions. So we'll see what comes out. But in terms of specifics, I'm happy to engage with you on one-on-one so that I get to know more about this and see what else we can do together, trying to advance that space. Thank you very much. And I think in terms of my closing remarks, I'm really very much thrilled having your participation in this meeting. This has been quite enriching, even for me, not just as a scientist that is trying to be more transdisciplinary in the work that I do. By training, I'm a climate scientist, but I've done things on leadership. I try to apply my science in other things. And so this has been my learning. Part of this process builds into the transdisciplinary or all-rounded researcher that I want to become, and I thank you for your contributions. I want to thank the moderator, Professor Olumuyegu Adegun, who is an architect representing the humanities side of things, Professor Peter, Professor Maria, Charles Razak, and Ngandu for the discussions or the reactions to the meeting. And we appreciate the contributions that you've made through the process. As a way forward, we would, in the coming months, are working on what may look like a funding arrangement or platform that we want to create with our partners. If you're not already subscribed to our mailing list, we'll encourage you to do that so that you don't miss on anything. But in the coming months, God willing, we may have a facility or an instrument that provides the support that we are that has been highlighted as the gap and priority going forward. And just to close the meeting, I would like to invite my executive director, Dr. Otibo Atem, if you may have your last remarks and close the meeting. But thank you very much to colleagues for making this happen. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Giga. Let me just put on my my video. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Giga, and thank you for all the participants connected. We're very pleased that these discussions are going on. And as I indicated earlier on, we need to bring social science strongly into the conversation. And we have a stark, evidence of how COVID, took over the whole world, and it required all hands on board. So we as scientists will need to do interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, work to make sure that whatever challenges we have, whatever solutions we provide are really, cohesive and coherent and also agile, involve all other people. Because if we don't, I was very interested also to hear a colleague from UNESCO. We're in the era of artificial intelligence. I'm just bringing another aspect of it. The scientists are developing different things. It's going very fast. And there are two challenges we have. One, that Africa needs to catch up. But two, globally, is ethics. And who do we work with in terms of designing and developing and ensuring that there's ethics of the artificial intelligence that we have? And at the same time, how do we make sure that we have science that is open to everybody? Social scientists that they can use is also accessible. And also we remove those barriers of cost. These are all social issues. So as you discuss this area of capacity building in social and human sciences, I'd also encourage you to look at the intradisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and also even the agile nature of this whole thing. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to have a few more remarks, but we're really pleased with this and are following the discussion, and we can only hope to have a more collaborative work on this subject, and we can all do it together. Thank you.
Thank you
Over
very
to you, Dr. Giga. Yeah.
Peggy, appreciate your comments. And it's goodbye from Nairobi. Until next time, please keep safe and let's keep in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.